What happened to the missing letter? Coronation Street spoilers follow. Coronation Street's next set of spoiler clips have been released, and the show is delving deeper into the backstory between Shona Platt and Jody Ramsey. As Jody confronts Shona about the past, can the sisters make a breakthrough, or will they only drift further apart? The ITV soap has kept fans guessing about Jody's intentions ever since she popped up in the Coriandale crossover special earlier this month. Now that Jody is settling into life at the Platt house, it's still unclear whether she's seeking reconciliation or revenge. Jody and Shona both have very different perspectives when it comes to their lack of contact in recent years. Keep scrolling for the latest videos. This is the perfect chance for Jody to confront Shona for abandoning her with their parents when she was younger. Jody reveals that she faced a terrible time with their controlling father, and that she had her heart set on being rescued by Shona. Jody bitterly accuses Shona of ignoring a desperate letter that she sent at the time, although Shona insists that she didn't receive it. Where does the truth lie? Did someone intercept the note? Maggie seeks sympathy and attention after a mishap involving Leanne and a bar stool at the Rovers. By this point, the ladies have been locked in tense discussions over Maggie potentially selling her share of the pub to Leanne. Ben, who's feeling stressed and annoyed over all the bickering, soon becomes visibly unwell and complains that he's feeling dizzy. As Maggie panics, Ava calls an ambulance. Will this be the wake-up call that the Driscoll family need to stop arguing? Ben clearly needs a united family around him right now. At the cafe, Nina playfully teases Will over who he's texting, unaware that it's groomer Megan. Lisa reveals that she's bought flowers for Carla and hopes they can enjoy a romantic lunch date later. It won't be that simple, though. The cobbles of Weatherfield are no stranger to secrets, but a newly unearthed one, buried in the bitter soil of a fractured childhood, threatens to destabilize one of the street's most resilient families. As Coronation Street delves deeper into the poignant and painful backstory between Shona Platt and her newly returned sister, Jody Ramsey, a single unanswered question hangs in the air, poisoning any chance of reconciliation. What happened to the missing letter? This week's explosive spoiler clips promise a confrontation years in the making, peeling back the layers of Shona's traumatic past to reveal a sibling narrative of abandonment, survival, and a desperate cry for help that seemingly vanished into thin air. The Platt home becomes a battleground. The uneasy truce that followed Jody's surprise arrival during the Coriandale crossover special has shattered. Now embedded within the Platt household, a home itself built on a foundation of blended families and hard-won peace, Jody is no longer a mysterious guest. She is a catalyst for chaos. With David Platt temporarily absent, visiting baby Harper in hospital, the stage is set for a raw and brutal showdown between the sisters. For Shona, Julia Goulding, Jody's presence is a walking reminder of a life she fought to escape. Her past, marred by the manipulation of her late murderous husband Clayton Hibbs and her own complex recovery from a brain injury, is a tapestry of survival. She has built a loving, if unconventional, family with David, navigating immense tragedy to find stability. Jody's arrival feels like the past violently intruding upon this hard-earned present. But for Jody, Alicia Ayo, Shona's escape was a betrayal. Abandoned in her eyes with their controlling and oppressive parents, Jody spent her formative years viewing Shona not as a fellow victim, but as a potential savior who never came. The sisters' perspectives, shaped by trauma and survival instincts, are diametrically opposed. Shona sees her departure as a necessary flight for sanity. Jody views it as a selfish desertion. The heart of the storm, a desperate plea lost in time. The upcoming scenes will see this simmering tension boil over. Jody, seizing the rare moment of privacy, confronts Shona with the visceral pain of a scarred teenager. She articulates a childhood spent under the thumb of a domineering father, her eyes constantly trained on the horizon, waiting for her big sister to rescue her. This is not just about absence, it's about the shattering of a specific, deeply held hope. Then she delivers the emotional bombshell, a letter. Jody will reveal, her voice thick with a bitterness nurtured over decades, that she did not suffer in silent hope. In her most desperate hour, she put pen to paper. She crafted a heartfelt, pleading letter to Shona, a tangible SOS sent out into the world, begging for intervention, for salvation, for any sign that she was not alone. This letter for Jody was her one tangible act of agency, her lifeline. Shona ignored it. She read her sister's cries for help and chose to turn away, sealing Jody's fate. Shona's denial is immediate and impassioned. She never received any letter. Her insistence is not that of someone guilty of omission, but of someone bewildered. If Jody sent it, where did it go? The truth, as ever on the cobbles, lies not in a simple binary of right and wrong, but in a murky gray area of interception, misfortune, or deliberate sabotage. Who intercepted the note? This central mystery opens a Pandora's box of classic Corey intrigue. The potential suspects and scenarios are numerous. The most obvious culprits. Did their father, or perhaps a complicit mother, discover the letter before it could be posted? Would they have gone to such lengths to isolate Jody and sever the sister bond, ensuring Shona could never be a source of influence or escape? A simpler yet no less tragic possibility. Could the letter have been lost in the post, a victim of incorrect addressing or sheer bad luck? A mundane explanation that would render the years of bitterness a horrific misunderstanding. Did Shona subconsciously block it out? Given Shona's own traumatic history and her later brain injury, could there be a psychological element? Is it remotely possible the letter arrived during a period of such personal turmoil that she has genuinely repressed it? This would be a controversial but deeply psychological twist. A third party. Was someone else in Shona's chaotic life at the time, a neighbor, a fleeting partner, even someone connected to Clayton involved in keeping the sisters apart? The unresolved fate of this single piece of paper is now a spectral third presence in the Platt home. It represents every missed connection, every unspoken word, and the foundational rift that may prove too wide to bridge. Can they find a way to trust each other's versions of the past, or will the mystery of the missing letter forever validate Jody's resentment and confirm Shona's perceived guilt? Across the street at the Rovers' return, another family is being torn apart not by past secrets, but by present-day greed and ambition. The tense stalemate between Leanne Battersby, Jane Danson, and Maggie, a formidable guest star, over the potential sale of Maggie's share of the pub has escalated from boardroom tactics to barroom bickering. The spoiler clips indicate a physical altercation, a mishap involving Leanne and a bar stool, leaving Maggie seeking sympathy and amplifying the drama. This petty squabbling reaches a critical peak when Ben Driscoll, caught in the crossfire and visibly stressed by the relentless conflict, suffers a frightening health scare. Overwhelmed and unwell, he complains of dizziness before collapsing, prompting a panicked Maggie and a quick-thinking Eva, Catherine Tildesley, to call an ambulance. This dramatic turn is poised to be a watershed moment. Ben's health crisis, played out against a backdrop of familial selfishness, serves as a stark metaphor. The very foundation of the pub, a community hearth, is being undermined by internal war, and now the family itself is physically crumbling. Will this emergency be the wake-up call the Driscolls need? Can they set aside their battling to unite for Ben's sake? Or will even a hospital vigil be marred by whispered arguments over business shares? The incident asks a profound question. What is the true cost of their feud? Dark clouds on the horizon, grooming, jealousy, and romantic troubles elsewhere on the cobbles. Quieter but no less dangerous storms are brewing. At the cafe, a seemingly innocent exchange carries a chilling subtext. Nina Lucas, Molly Gallagher, playfully teases Will, a newcomer, about his secretive texting, her goth charm masking a genuine concern for a friend. The audience, however, shares a dreadful knowledge. The person on the other end of those messages is Megan, the sophisticated predator slowly and methodically grooming Will. This storyline continues to be a critically important and sensitively handled narrative, with Nina's innocent teasing highlighting how isolating and hidden the grooming process can be. When will the horrifying truth surface, and will Nina be the one to spot the signs? Meanwhile, Lisa, a returning character, is attempting to rekindle romance with factory boss Carla Connor, Allison King. A bouquet of flowers and plans for a romantic lunch speak of hope and reconciliation. But this is Coronation Street, and nothing is ever simple. Given Carla's tumultuous history, immense pressures at Underworld, and her own complex personality, Lisa's romantic gestures are likely to meet with obstacles, misunderstandings, or the sudden eruption of past dramas. Can their relationship withstand the pressures of the cobbles, or is it doomed to be another casualty of Weatherfield's chaotic energy? This collection of spoilers paints a picture of a community at a crossroads, forced to confront the ghosts of the past and the consequences of present actions. From the deeply personal mystery of a lost childhood letter threatening to destroy a sisterly bond, to a pub feud literally making a man ill, the drama is both intimate and expansive. The mystery of Jodi's letter to Shona is particularly potent. It's a classic soap device with profound emotional resonance. Its resolution, or lack thereof, will define the future of the Platt household and determine whether Jodi is there for reconciliation or if, fueled by this lifelong slight, her agenda is ultimately one of quiet, calculated revenge. As the ambulance races towards Ben, and as Shona searches her memory for a letter she never knew existed, one thing is certain. On Coronation Street, the past is never dead. It's not even past, and sometimes it arrives in the post, or fails to, with devastating consequences. The impending confrontation between Shona Platt and Jodi Ramsey over the Phantom Letter is more than a weekly plot point. It is a masterclass in psychological storytelling, a meticulously crafted device that threatens to destabilize not just two sisters, but the entire fragile ecosystem of the Platt family. To understand the seismic potential of this missing letter, we must embark on a forensic examination not just of what might have happened to it, but of what its very existence, or non-existence, represents. In the economy of soap opera, a lost letter is a loaded gun introduced in Act 1. Its power lies in its ambiguity. It is both a MacGuffin, a physical object driving the plot, and a Rorschach test for character. For Jodi, the letter is her soul in ink. It is the irrefutable evidence of her victimhood and Shona's tacit complicity. In her mind, its sending was an act of profound courage. Its presumed receipt and dismissal is the ultimate betrayal. It transforms Shona from a fellow casualty of their upbringing into a perpetrator by neglect. This isn't just about being left behind, it's about actively being denied a lifeline she witnessed being thrown. The letter, in Jodi's narrative, is the smoking gun. For Shona, the letter is a ghost accusation. It charges her with a crime she has no memory of committing. Having fought her own demons, the legacy of Clayton, the brain injury that rewired her very self, her past is a murky, painful landscape. The letter's mention doesn't trigger guilt, but a terrifying epistemological crisis. Could it be true? Could her trauma or injury have erased this crucial receipt of duty? The mystery attacks the foundation of her self-perception as a survivor. If the letter was real and she missed it, does her survival somehow invalidate Jodi's suffering? For David Platt, Jack P. Shepard, returning to a home fractured by this ancient history, the letter is an existential threat. He has built a life with Shona against staggering odds. This mystery paints his wife, the rock of his chaotic world, in a potentially monstrous light. His loyalty will be violently tested. Will he side with the woman he knows and loves, dismissing Jody as a troublemaker? Or will the seed of doubt, the image of a desperate young Jody scribbling a plea, force him into a destabilizing neutrality? For the audience, the letter is the engine of delicious, agonizing suspense. We are detectives alongside the characters. Every glance from Jody, every bewildered expression from Shona is now evidence to be weighed. The show has expertly made us empathize with both. We understand Jody's scorching hurt, but we also believe Shona's genuine confusion. We are trapped in the dramatic irony, knowing more than any single character, yet powerless to solve the core mystery. A deep dive into the psychological landscape, beyond the obvious suspects. While the controlling father is the prime suspect, Coronation Street has the opportunity to explore more nuanced, devastating possibilities. What if their mother found the letter? Not a domineering villain, but a weak, envious woman trapped in her own unhappy marriage. Seeing Jody's plea to escape might have ignited not protective anger, but a bitter resentment. Why should Jody get to escape when she couldn't? Destroying or hiding the letter could have been an act of warped solidarity, keeping Jody in the familiar prison, sparing her the unknown dangers Shona faced, or simply ensuring she wasn't left alone with the father. This twist would reframe the parents' dynamic, making the mother a covert architect of Jody's isolation, a betrayal from the parent she might have perceived as the softer one. The Clayton Connection. A chilling, retroactive shadow. Shona's life during her time with Clayton Hibbs was one of manipulation and control. Could the letter have arrived at a point when Clayton was isolating Shona from her entire world? Finding a heartfelt letter from a sister might have been seen by him as a threat, a potential lifeline that could pull Shona from his influence. His interception and destruction of it would be a silent, brutal act of coercion, severing Shona's last tie to a moral universe outside of his. The tragic irony would be breathtaking. Shona's greatest tormentor might have been the one who literally stole her chance to save her sister, making Shona an unwitting victim of the very act for which she is now being blamed. The most haunting possibility is sheer, meaningless misfortune. A wrong postcode, a rain-blurred address, a sorting office error, the letter languishing in a dead letter office before being destroyed. This explanation offers no villain, only the cruel indifference of the universe. It means Jody's suffering was compounded by a random administrative failure, and Shona's innocence is preserved by a twist of fate. Would this absolve Shona in Jody's eyes, or would it make the entire tragedy even harder to bear? A world so capricious that a sister's salvation could be lost behind a misstamped envelope. The ripple effect, a family and a street in the balance. The mystery's fallout will not be contained to the Platt living room. Gail, Helen Worth, and the tyranny of family first. Gail, the matriarch who has weathered every Platt storm, will be torn. Her instinct is to protect her brood, David, Max, Lily, and Shona by extension. Jody's arrival and accusations are an invasive threat. Gail may initially rally against Jody, seeing her as a disruptor, but if evidence emerges that Shona did knowingly abandon Jody, Gail's moral compass, however wobbly, will spin. Her entire identity is built on familial loyalty, however dysfunctional. Could she tolerate that sin within her walls? Max, Patty Bever, and Lily, Brooke Maloney, are old enough to grasp the gravity of the conflict. They've seen Shona as a steadfast, if unconventional, stepmother. This new narrative paints her as potentially cruel or negligent. For Max, whose own moral boundaries have been tested, this could either harden his cynicism or trigger a surprising defense of Shona. For Lily, it's a lesson in the terrifying complexity of adult lives, where heroes can have hidden failures. Across the street, observers like Carla Connor will view this through the lens of their own brutal pasts. Carla, whose relationship with her own brother was famously toxic, might see shades of her own struggles in Shona's predicament. Peter Barlow, a man defined by his failures and redemptions, might offer a unique brand of tough, world-weary counsel to David, understanding the weight of being judged for past actions. The Driscoll family's physical collapse under the strain of petty argument is a direct parallel to the Platts' psychological collapse under the weight of past silence. Both stories ask, what happens when a family stops communicating honestly? In the Rovers, it leads to an ambulance. In the Platt house, it leads to an emotional hemorrhage. Ben's health scare is a visceral, immediate consequence of conflict. The Platts crisis is a slower, more insidious poison, but no less deadly to their unit.
The future. Reconciliation or revenge? Jodi's ultimate motive remains the show's central enigma. Is she a wounded soul seeking closure, or a wolf in sheep's clothing weaving a narrative of victimhood to exact revenge? The breakthrough. If proof emerges that the letter was genuinely intercepted, especially by the father or Clayton, it could be the key to reconciliation. The shared realization that they were both puppets of a monstrous man or men could unite them in a powerful, sisterly bond against a common enemy from the past. They could transition from accuser and accused to fellow survivors, forging a new alliance that strengthens the Platt family. The irreparable fracture. If no proof is found, or if Shona's denial begins to crack under pressure, Jodi's bitterness will solidify into permanent rage. She could evolve into a classic, calculating soap villainess, using her position within the home to systematically sabotage Shona's relationships with David, Gail, and the children. She could weaponize the doubt, planting seeds of suspicion about Shona's fitness as a mother and partner. The Platt home would become a Cold War. The unthinkable truth. What if Shona, in a moment of harrowing revelation, does remember? What if, in the depths of her own crisis with Clayton, a letter did arrive and, in a state of terror, survival mode selfishness, or under Clayton's direct threat, she destroyed it or chose not to act? This confession would be earth-shattering. It would validate Jodi's entire life narrative of betrayal, but would also paint Shona in a tragically human light, not as a monster, but as a broken young woman who failed a terrible test. The path to forgiveness from that point would be long, agonizing, and profoundly dramatic. The mystery of the missing letter is Coronation Street at its best. It uses a simple, timeless device to explore profound themes: the unreliable nature of memory, the competing truths of trauma, the corrosive power of unresolved guilt, and the fragile architecture of family. It forces every character and the audience to ask uncomfortable questions. How responsible are we for those we leave behind? Can you be a victim and a perpetrator simultaneously? How do you rebuild trust when the foundational event is shrouded in mystery? As Shona and Jodi stand on the precipice of their truth, and as Ben Driscoll's ambulance wails in the background, the message is clear. On the cobbles, silence is not golden. It is toxic, and the past always demands to be heard, one way or another, whether through a desperate rediscovered letter or through the screaming void of its absence.